Right. The podcast that uncovers the origin stories of some of the biggest names in sports, media, entertainment, entrepreneurship, and so much more. And Joe, I would say our guest today certainly checks all those boxes.
Absolutely. Our guest today is a multi-industry trailblazer. He has left an indelible and an irreplaceable footprint in the world of sports, business, and entertainment, a true game changer when it comes to marketing and promotion. We relax your mind, let your conscience be free. Michael Yormark joins your boys, Nick and Joe, hailing from
Thank you.
NYC.
Guys,
Michael
what an
Yormark.
what an intro. What an intro. We can end this podcast right now. You made me feel so good, so loved just now.
I appreciate that. And, we welcome you to the show.
Thank you.
Very fortunate to have you on. Our first question to you is something that we've been pondering here for the last week or so. How did you learn about the I'm Right podcast, and what really impresses you about it the most?
Well, listen, to be honest with you and transparent, I learned about you through some of my staff members around the world, here in London, in Africa. I think the people that you have on your podcast are very authentic. You've showcased some of the best talent in our industry. It's humbling, to be on this podcast with you today, based on the previous guests that you've had. I don't do a lot of podcasts, I must tell you that. But I just felt this was the right one. First and foremost, you're based in America. I'm from America, although I sit in our European headquarters in London. And I just like, the way you guys do things. I like the authenticity. I like your approach. I like your hustle. And that's why I'm here today.
Well, Michael, we certainly appreciate that. And yes, Joe, we are global show, and everyone's green with envy about our show. But Michael, we're thrilled to have you on with us here today. So you're a busy man, obviously. So I'm curious, when you wake up in the morning, what's the first app you're checking on your phone?
So I don't check apps. But when I do, although very rarely I do, but the only app that I do check when I get up in the morning is the ESPN app, because being in London and being in Europe, traveling the world like I do, I've got to stay connected to my USA-based teams, specifically in the NBA, the Phoenix Suns,
Okay.
And KD. So that's the first app I look at to make sure that I have the latest and greatest scores. But as you probably know, based on my history, the first thing I do when I wake up is I train, because getting my body right and getting my mind right each and every day is very important. That's the first thing I do. And I typically don't look at my phone when I work out. That's my time to get my mind and body right so I can perform at the highest level during the day in support of our clients and in support of our staff.
What time do you wake up in the morning?
I get up between 3:30 and 4 every day. I'm typically in the gym no later than 4:15, and I try to get into the office no later than 6:40, 6:45 every day, regardless of where I am in the world. So even though I go from time zone to time zone, I build my flights and my schedule around those early morning workouts.
Very, very nice. And you mentioned checking in on your sports teams here in the great United States. But I wanted to ask you, what were some of your favorite sports teams growing up? And do you still have any type of relationship and fandom to those teams now? Because, as you work through this industry and you get older, I would say maybe sometimes people could become desensitized, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So do you still follow your sports teams that you grew up?
I do. That's a great question. So growing up in Morristown, New Jersey, and then Livingston, New Jersey, I followed the New York Yankees, were my favorite baseball team. And fortunately, early in my career, I had the opportunity to work for the New York Yankees. My basketball team, and I shared this passion with my twin brother, Brett, was the Philadelphia 76ers. Because I watched Dr. J on Christmas Day back in 1976 when he played at Madison Square Garden. And I fell in love with him. He became my idol as a kid. And so the 76ers were my team. In football, because of how they were profiled on Thanksgiving Day, the Dallas Cowboys were my football team, right?
Sorry to hear
that. And so I must tell you today, I'm still a Dallas Cowboys fan. I still follow the Cowboys, and I do try to get to one game in Dallas every year.
Nice.
I'm still a big New York Yankee fan. I bleed pinstripe blue. That's why I'm wearing pinstripe blue today. And my allegiance in basketball has changed because typically I follow my favorite players. And so today I'm a Phoenix Suns fan because of my admiration for KD.
Okay,
Very, very
fair enough.
nice.
Now, you did mention you're from New Jersey, so I need to know because you're in London now. Do you miss the pizza in New Jersey?
I
New
got to be
York?
honest with you. Based on my diet, I really don't eat a lot of pizza.
Okay,
So I don't miss it. But if I was to have pizza, there's nothing better than New York pizza, right?
sure.
So that's where I would have it. But because it's not part of my diet, I don't miss it.
Okay, and I've been to London, but obviously I've heard about tea time. So is the tea better in London than in America?
The tea is quite good here.
Okay.
It is quite good. And as you said, it is a big part of the culture. Having tea in the afternoon. Although I don't typically have the time to engage in that. Sometimes on the weekend I'll grab a cup of tea. When I'm out and about here in central London. But they do have good tea here.
So where did you go to college? What type of internships and how active were you at that time?
Sure.
And breaking into the industry now, I think over the last 10 years or so has become increasingly more difficult. You have to wear multiple hats, which is something that I don't think was the case necessarily a couple decades ago. So where did you go to school?
So undergraduate, I went to the University of Maryland. After I attended the University of Maryland in College Park, I went to Ohio University and got my master's in sports administration. At the time that I went to Ohio University, they were one of a handful of schools that offered that degree in America. So I was very blessed and fortunate to have the opportunity to go to what I would consider the Harvard of the sports management schools. I'm still involved, from a distance in both universities. I support the Terps, both in football and basketball. Basketball wise, they're off to a pretty good start. I think they're 17-5, as of last night.
Yes.
And I do support, the university, Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. Although I was only on campus for a year, it was a very special time for me and a very special place.
So at what point in your life did you decide, okay, maybe I want to try to pursue a career in the sports field? And what steps did you take to make that happen initially?
So you're not going to believe this, but it's true. I knew what I wanted to do when I was 13 years old. My twin brother and I used to talk. We shared a bedroom when we grew up in Morristown and then Livingston, and we would often talk about where we wanted to be in life down the road. We would often dream and discuss our careers. And we both wanted to be in the sports and entertainment industry. Now, at 13, we didn't understand or think about exactly where we wanted to be within the industry, but our blueprint to get to where we wanted started at the tender age of 13. And everything we did from 13 on was a step in that direction. So when I was in high school, when I got to college at University of Maryland, I was part of the work study program. I worked for the athletic department for 4 years. I also had the opportunity during my senior year to intern for, at that time, arguably the number one sports marketing and sports management firm in America, if not globally, and that was ProServe, the big competitor of IMG.
Yeah.
And I actually interned for the super agent David Falk. And if you go
Best.
back, in the 70s and 80s, there was nobody better than David Falk. I mean, he was the king of the industry. And that's where I knew that the sports and entertainment industry, was the perfect spot for me and for my career journey.
You mentioned before you grew up a New York Yankees fan. I love that. Knicks and Mets fan, unfortunately, but we'll let it slide here. So getting your first real major job in sports with the New York Yankees, how did that come about for you?
So before I answer the question, you had mentioned that years ago it wasn't difficult to get into this business. Today, it's much more difficult. Now, I will tell you that one of the reasons I get up so early in the morning, one of the reasons I have so much passion and energy for this industry at this point in my career is that I did not have an easy start. So when I came out of graduate school, and I had a great resume, for a kid that graduated from graduate school, having done so many internships, having worked at the University of Maryland, in the athletic department for 4 years, having also worked on the campus at Ohio University during my 1 year there, I thought I had the perfect resume. But you know what? I was wrong. I sent out 385 resumes. I didn't get one bite. And so for 18 months, I had to go back to my hometown. I had to sell men's clothing during the day. And I actually cleaned offices and office buildings at night just to pay for my student loans. So for those 18 months, it was not easy. And then I got a phone call one afternoon from a family friend who happened to be a minority owner of the New York Yankees, the late Barry Halper. And he said, Michael, I just got off the phone with one of the executives at the Yankees. They have a position open. They're about to hire somebody today. I asked them to hold off on that hiring until they met with you. So put on your best suit, get into the Bronx, knock it out of the ballpark, and get that job. And you know what? That's exactly what I did. I put on my best suit. I drove into the Bronx. I killed the interview. And by the time I got home, I was offered the job. And that's how my career started at my beloved New York Yankees. So it wasn't easy to get there, but I got there finally. And because of that experience, that inspires and motivates me to this day.
Very, very well said. And, they do say sometimes you don't want to meet your heroes, they'll become your enemies. But it didn't seem like for you, seeing the inner beast workings inside with the Yankees, that it turned you away at all. It kind of made you more passionate about the sports field. Is that correct?
No question. I mean, when I got all that rejection from all those resumes, I remember as if it was yesterday. My mother would say to me, my sister would say to me, even my brother said to me, hey, go work on Wall Street. Wall Street was hot at that time.
Right.
Go do something different. Yeah. Don't put yourself through this. And I said, you know what? I'm a dreamer. And I've dreamed about entering this field since I was 13 years old. I'm not going to allow that dream to fade. And so to your point, when I got that job at the New York Yankees, it inspired me and motivated me and pushed me to work harder than anyone else, to be the first one in the office, to be the last one to leave, and to work 7 days a week. And I've continued that throughout my entire career journey. That's what fuels me even today when I sit here in London.
Very nice. So tell us about the transition from, working with the teams and then at the point where you do go into the communications field more, Katz Communications, front row communications. You're also working on some stuff with the broadcasting and stuff like that. So talk to us about that switch from working for a team to now working for a company who works with other sources within sports.
So I started my career with the New York Yankees. And to your point, after a couple of years, I shifted to the media rep side with Katz Communications and Celltel. And I think that move was all about making sure that I had a well-rounded background, right? I wanted to continue my career journey, but I also wanted to make sure that as I went from job to job, I was gaining new skill sets, becoming a little bit more well-rounded. And I wanted to have new experiences. And so that experience at Katz and Celltel gave me experience on the media side of the sports business. So that when I packaged that up with the team experience, I was very, very marketable for my next opportunity. But my time at Celltel, my time at Katz gave me exposure in multi-markets throughout the U.S. It gave me the opportunity to work in big markets and small markets, representing at that time independent TV stations that were rights holders to professional sports teams. And it was awesome. Great experience.
Boy, oh boy, has the business changed in that period of time. It's amazing.
It's true.
So we're huge hockey fans. I'm a hockey nut. I come from a hockey family. I have to say it out loud. I'm really sorry. I'm still pissed about the Florida Panthers knocking out the New York Rangers last year in the Eastern Conference Final. That'll haunt me for the rest of my life. But let's pivot to hockey. Getting your start in the NHL, working for the Columbus Bluejackets and an organization in the Tampa Bay Lightning. For 30 years, they've been one of the premier organizations in the NFL, the NHL, 3 Stanley Cup championships. So what was it like moving and getting those opportunities to start working with these NHL teams?
Sure. So let me take you a little bit, let me take you back, because after I left Katz and Celltel, I went down to South Florida and worked for Front Row Communications, which was a company that was owned by the late and great, may he rest in peace, Wayne Huizenga, who at that time owned the Dolphins, the Panthers, and the Florida Marlins. Front Row Communications was the marketing and media arm for those 3 clubs. When I arrived in South Florida in the mid-90s, the Florida Panthers were on their way to the Stanley Cup, and they lost against the Colorado Avalanche in 4 games. That was my first taste, really, of NHL hockey, which was absolutely amazing. After spending a couple of years down in South Florida, I actually left with the coach of the Florida Panthers, Doug McClain, who became the president and GM of the expansion Columbus Bluejackets. And I thought it was just a great opportunity, not so much to stay in the hockey world, but to go into a market like Columbus, which was always known as a collegiate sports town, and truly bring the first professional sports team to that market and build a state-of-the-art arena, the Nationwide Arena. So that was the reason behind that move. I stayed there for 1 year. And when I went there, to be totally transparent, I thought it was going to be a 5 to 10 year job, but I got a phone call at that time from the CEO of Palace Sports and Entertainment, Tom Wilson. And he said, Michael, our owner is buying the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's a huge turnaround. And you know Florida as well or better than anyone. We need you there. And so I was hired immediately as the executive vice president and chief marketing officer of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, really important fact. 2 days after I accept the job, Sports Illustrated does a feature on the worst run teams in professional sports. And the Tampa Bay Lightning were number 1. So here I leave this incredible opportunity in Columbus, head down to Tampa Bay, and it truly is a fix-up and a turnaround. But that, again, was an incredible experience. To be part of something that really had to be fixed and turned around was another opportunity for me to put something great on my resume. Again, it wasn't about hockey. It was about the opportunity.
And opportunity keeps knocking when you are grinding it out like you did. And from there, of course, you become the president and CEO of Sunrise Sports Entertainment, the Florida Panthers, their arena. You're named at that point a Sports Business Journal 40 Under 40 winner. And at the time, you brokered the most lucrative naming right partnership in history with the BB&T Center there. So that was that's where you spent the majority of your career, 10 years. So talk to us about first how you got that position to go over there, and then what I talked about with the naming deal, because naming rights for stadiums is tremendous. That's a huge source of income for each sports franchise.
So my 4+ years in Tampa Bay was amazing, but I always had the ambition to be the top executive.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the Florida Panthers offered me an opportunity to go back to South Florida, a market that I really love, I spent a lot of time there as a kid. And obviously I was there with Front Row Communications. It was just a great opportunity at the right time. It was also a turnaround. And so I thought that I could take the playbook that we executed so well in Tampa Bay and bring it to South Florida and hopefully re-energize that organization and that arena. and re-energized we did. The first shift we made was really positioning the club in the arena as an entertainment company as opposed to just a hockey club. I felt that was the best way to compete in a really cluttered market in South Florida. We made sure that the BB&T Center became, one of the premier venues in America, not just for hockey, but for concerts and shows and other events. And after I arrived, we were annually one of the top 10 buildings in America. And on the hockey side, we slowly started gaining traction and having, some success. It wasn't easy because, as you can imagine, South Florida, a very non-traditional market for hockey, it did not have a great history, coming out of the mid-90s when the team went to the Stanley Cup Finals. And so it was a bit of a heavy lift, but we got there. And it was a very rewarding experience for me. I spent 10 and a half, 11 years in Sunrise. Obviously, the team won the Stanley Cup last year. Many of those players, those young players that we drafted, have developed into superstars and are now leading the way in South Florida. And they're having another great season. By the way, I also was surprised that they beat your Rangers. But I think ultimately, last year, the best team won because you think about their path to the finals. It wasn't easy. They beat some of the best teams in the league, and they deserved that Stanley Cup.
And they came off an Eastern Conference championship the previous season. I think the effect that you had in South Florida is still going today because Fort Lauderdale and that area, and the immediate area, and that 25, 30-minute span outside the city is a hotbed now. I think a lot of people are moving there as opposed to a little more south, closer to Miami. So kudos to you for being able to do that. So how much pull these days do you still have with the organization? Can you simply make a call at any time, get us tickets to a game? Could you get us tickets to the 2026 Winter Classic?
Hey, listen, in all transparency, I've not been to a game since I left. I live abroad now. I've been living abroad now for almost 6 years. My home is still in Boca Raton, Florida. And when I get home, I spend all my time with my wife and our beautiful daughter, Sophia. I don't have time to go to hockey games or go down the Sunrise. I still keep in touch with some people that are part of the organization, but my ties, are not there anymore. One thing with me, when one door closes, the next one opens. And while it was a wonderful chapter in my career journey, it's in the past. And now I'm just pushing forward.
Yeah, makes sense. And I'm curious, from a high vantage viewpoint here, because you were there when the Bluejackets opened the arena. You did great stuff in Sunrise with the arena. Just curious here, with all the stadiums and arenas that have been built over the last decade plus, is it surprising to you that there's still in like a lot of markets where it rains or it's cold a lot, they don't put domes or roofs? Because it seems like it's a missed opportunity, especially in the Northeast, to get, like you mentioned, those entertainment aspects, concerts and wrestling shows throughout the winter, where basically these NFL stadiums are sitting kind of dormant outside of 8 to 10 weeks per season.
No, listen, I agree with you. I mean, I always looked at sport as entertainment.
Yeah,
not everyone does, right? When you own a football team or a hockey team or an NBA team, you're so focused on that team. When I went to South Florida, as I said, and as you mentioned, I rebranded the whole company around Sunrise Sports and Entertainment. I didn't want to be thought of as just a hockey team, because the way I could compete in South Florida is based on the value proposition of sport and entertainment. I had a chance to really build something special. If I thought of myself just as a hockey team, I don't think I could have competed. And so when you talk about venues, to me, venues, whether you're a stadium or an arena, they need to be multi-purpose. Think about it. If I own an NBA team in an arena, the majority of my events are not basketball events. If I'm an owner of a hockey team in an arena, The majority of the events are not hockey games. I'm actually in the content business. And so that's the mindset that I had years ago. And I think that's the mindset that developers need to have as they're building these venues, not only in America, but around the world.
Totally agree. Joe and I here, we absolutely hate MetLife Stadium because it's just a tin can and there's nothing that you can't use in the winter. And they
I'll
really
tell you,
messed up.
the guy who was a visionary, and I don't say this just because I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, but Jerry Jones
Yeah,
and the Jones
great
family, when they
stadium.
built the AT&T Center, stadium,
Yeah.
rather, he knew that he was in the content business. He knew that when he built that venue, yes, he was going to have it for 16 NFL regular season games, but he was going to attract sporting events from around the world.
Yep. And he put that big screen in too.
Right, 100%. And
now they all copycat.
That's right. And by the way, after so many years, it's still one of the finest venues in the world today.
Yeah.
Teams and clubs that are building venues here in Europe, they look at AT&T Stadium as the Mecca. It's still truly one of the best because he was a visionary. He understood the business that he was truly in.
Yeah. Okay, I gotta have to agree with you. It's been revolutionary for sure. And it's changed the game just like you're changing the game now in your current role. So talk to us about the opportunity to come about to join Roc Nation International. How did that come to you? And was it an easy choice for you to take it? And talk to us about the process of moving overseas to London.
Sure. So going back to your intro, when I first joined Roc Nation in 2014, I was the president and chief of branding and strategy based in our HQ in New York. And I did that job and I did it effectively for about 5 years. And then I had the vision after we had started our sports division, which I was a part of from virtually day one, that if we, Roc Nation, truly wanted to be a global company, we needed to have a global footprint. We needed to take our guiding principles that made us and have made us so successful in America, and we needed to bring them across the pond and open up shop here. And so in September of 2019, I took a suitcase from Miami and I came abroad by myself with the intent of not bringing any Americans with me, but only hiring people here in Europe. We opened up an office, our European headquarters, our global headquarters, in Fitzrovia, which is central London. And our goal was to insert ourselves into the football, soccer ecosystem and to represent some of the best footballers in the world, both on pitch and off. We also felt that there was a unique opportunity to get into the sports consulting business, especially because of my background, having run professional sports teams in America. And so that's something that we jumped into immediately. And then shortly after we opened up the office, I was exposed for the very first time to the sport of rugby. And today we've got a rugby vertical where we represent arguably the top players in the world. But I must tell you that even though I got the approval of our board to do this, and they were super excited about it, there were so many naysayers. No way can Roc Nation come to Europe and get into the football business. They're going to open up an office and close it in 60 days. People have tried it before. It's never going to happen. They can't do it. Well, guess what? Almost 6 years later, we're the 8th most valuable football agency in the world today. And we've done it because we've taken our guiding principles from America. We've applied them to the football world. We've applied them to the rugby world. We've created a value proposition that players, quite frankly, had never been exposed to or never had the opportunity to be exposed to. We're doing it differently. And we're not trying to be the biggest. We just want to be the best. And we want to offer the most value. And so our secret sauce is very simple. We're out hustling our competition. We're outworking our competition. We're more strategic. We have a blueprint for success that we're following. And we treat every single client like they're the most important client in our company. That's why after almost 6 years, we're still standing, we're still growing, and we're not going to stop until we're number one.
Well, with that mindset, it'll definitely happen. And for you, it's been a great journey so far. I'm curious, when you came and moved over there, was there any sort of learning curve for you as far as getting with soccer, getting up to date with rugby protocols, and with your mindset, do you think coming from American sports background, that actually helps you to revolutionize the way you do things with the European clients?
Great question. So on a personal level, when I came over here, it wasn't easy. I left my family behind in Boca Raton, Florida. I knew that ultimately, if I came over by myself, I could really immerse myself in this job. I knew it was going to be challenging, and I knew it was going to require a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of dedication. And it probably would not have been fair to my wife and daughter to move them here to London and then not to be here, because I travel the world. I mean, I came back from a short weekend in South Florida earlier this week. Yesterday, I was in Germany. Today, I'm back in London. Sunday, I fly to South Africa. I come back from South Africa after 6 days. I go to Ghana. From Ghana, I go to Spain. So I'm all over the world. And so the transition for me, was just dealing with the fact that there was going to be loneliness, right? I was going to be by myself. I lived by myself. And so, how do I occupy those couple of free hours that I may have during the day or on the weekends? From a background perspective, I do believe, though, that my experience in America has helped me bring a level of expertise and creativity and innovation to the way clients are represented and the way brands are consulted here in Europe and Africa and in Brazil now, because Brazil is a big market for us following the acquisition of the TFM agency, which is now Roc Nation Sports Brazil. We have offices in Sao Paulo and Rio, and we are arguably the most dominant football agency in Brazil. So my background has really helped us accelerate our growth, give us credibility, but most importantly, provide a value proposition to clients that didn't exist.
Very nice. What would you say is your favorite place you've lived? Because you lived in many places over the years.
Well, I must tell you, I love living in Europe. London's a great city. I lived in New York City. I've lived in other big cities, but London I find to be very manageable. It's also a bit of a melting pot, right? You have people from all over the world here. And needless to say, the fact that everyone speaks English makes it much easier. The other real nice thing about London is its access to other countries around Europe. I fly to Germany, Cologne, Germany. I'm a guest speaker at a leadership conference, and I'm in and out in the same day. It's, an hour flight. I go to Milan quite a bit. We have, some clients in Milan, footballers, and I'm there in less than 2 hours. I go to Spain, where we represent two incredible athletes, Vinicius Jr., arguably the best player in the world, and Endrick, one of the best young players.
He's a star
in the world. And I'm in and out of, I'm in Madrid in less than 2 hours. So the proximity of London to all the markets that I travel to is absolutely amazing. So I must say that, if I look back on my career, London has probably been the best place I've lived.
Yeah, I didn't realize how centrally you are to everything. So that makes everything great for you. And on this point here, I wanted to ask you, can be biased on this, but is the Big 12 conference your favorite college and basketball conference?
That's funny. Here's what I'll tell you. I follow college athletics pretty closely now. And obviously, with Brett being the commissioner of the Big 12, I pay close attention, to the conference during football season and basketball season. I would say it's my favorite conference because they're the most creative, they're the most innovative, and they're the most aggressive. Brett and I had a conversation about this actually as recently as last night. When he was hired as the commissioner, it was a non-traditional hire. Today, it's a traditional hire. Why? Because collegiate athletics are pro sports,
Sure.
right? I mean, when you think about the NIL, the impact of NIL, the impact of the portal, the fact that, any player is a free agent at the end of every season, the fact that you got to constantly recruit, the fact that these players are now being paid, it truly is professional sports.
Mm-hmm.
So my brother went there at the perfect time as the landscape was shifting and changing, because he's got the perfect mindset, skill set, background to take that conference to another level. And quite frankly, to not only compete with the other big three, but to ultimately surpass them. So I admire the conference because of the way they're run.
Yeah.
And because of the approach and the strategy that my brother has implemented in order to grow that conference and take it to another level.
Yeah, and who better to work in a realignment system as the commissioner than a guy who moved the Brooklyn Nets to Brooklyn and built an entertainment stadium just like you, took a page from your book. So very well done. I'm sure your parents are very proud of both of you. Last question here for us. What would you say in your life or your career has been your I'm right moment? What I mean by that, it's a time or place where you wanted to pursue something, you asked somebody for advice. That person who asked for advice said, Michael, that's a terrible idea. It's not going to work out. Why would you even try to do that? And you were like, listen, I'm going to go ahead and do this. And in the end, you will see why it is that I'm right about this. And I can tell you, I told you so.
So, as I look back on my career, I told you about my humble beginnings.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very humble guy when it comes to where I am today. I'm very blessed and very fortunate to sit in the chair that I sit, but I'm very humble. Outside of my family and outside of our board and the owners of Rock Nation, nobody thought that we could build what we're building right now in Europe. Everyone told me, you're crazy. You're nuts. You're going to go over there to a foreign culture, get into a foreign sport that you and your agency know nothing about.
Mm-hmm.
And you expect to compete? And I told them, watch me. We're not only going to compete, we're going to win. And you know what? We've had small wins every day over the last 5.5, close to 6 years. And now we're starting to win big. And when you think about our roster, you think about the influence and the impact that we're making in this industry. No one could have dreamed of this. And now our competitors are trying to double down in football because of what we started 6 years ago. I'm flattered. But you know what? I tell my competition every day, you can try to catch me. You're not going to catch me. Because we're going to outwork you. We're going to out-hustle you. We're going to be more strategic. We've got the blueprint for success. We're very consistent in following, our plan. And so we're going to continue to create separation from those agencies that are trying to catch us. But no one outside of my family and outside of Rock Nation thought we could do this. But we're doing it.
Well said. Unbelievable. And there's something that stood out before that you said, right? Never stop that hustler mentality. There are a lot of other shows out there that have a bigger budget than Nick and I. We're just two people who have our own family lives who are doing this. Most of the recordings that we do are remote. They're on Zoom meetings just like this. And here we are speaking to the amazing Michael Yormark, who apparently stumbled on our show and really, really liked our show. I think the big takeaway here is you never know who's watching. You never know who's out there, who is appreciating your stuff, who is liking your stuff. Michael, I can really say, sincerely say this. We appreciate the fact that not only do you like our stuff, but you and your people reached out to take the time to be on our show today. So we appreciate you so much. We wish you the best of luck moving forward with everything. We know you're an incredibly busy individual. what we do here is we give our guests the last word. So on top of everything else that you've given us, if there's anything else you would personally like to share, where could we find you? If there's anything else you would like to promote on top and anything that the company's got going on in the immediate future, please let us know. And we thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much. And people that hustle have to stick together.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons we're on the Zoom together today. I just want to give one parting, comment for the people that are going to be listening to your podcast. If you have a dream, go for it. I had a dream at 13 years old. I had to overcome a lot of challenges to make that dream a reality. But if you're passionate about something and you believe in something and it's something you truly want to do in life, then never give up your dream. Because if you work hard and you're committed and you're dedicated and you hustle and you have a little bit of luck, those dreams will become a reality. Guys, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an honor.
Incredible last words, and that's going to do it here for this episode of You Know I'm Right. Michael, maybe we'll meet up at the World Cup final at MetLife Stadium next year. We can meet you in person. But Michael, thank you for your time. So for Michael Yormark, for Joe Calabrese, I'm Nick Durst, and this has been You Know I'm Right.